Smart 24, driving business.
Hello there, a very warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. It's your, of course, host, Anthony Sabale. And of course, this is Financial Markets, a segment where we get to drive you through what's happening in the world of financial markets and trading, especially on the stock markets here in Africa and across the world. And of course, you can, of course, get to guarantee that you can follow us on Twitter and give us feedback on all the content here on our Twitter handle. That's at Smart24 TV now. And you can also follow up with the show on YouTube at Smart24 TV Live and get to catch up with any of the content that you might have missed out. It's the 22nd of May, of course, a Monday, and we have a fresh new week ahead. A lot of expectations from the different segments of the markets. But here in Africa, the stock markets have been currently very volatile with a few changes here and there, like I'm going to update you on the Uganda Stock Exchange on Friday. And then on the international market, we are seeing, of course, a lot of tension on the US market as we await information from the debt ceiling discussions between the President of the United States, President Joe Biden, and the House Speaker, that is Kevin McCarthy, there on the Congress, and what will be the decision of the United States government concerning the debt ceiling. Remember, the debt ceiling is the point at which the debt is at least named unsustainable, or a country is maybe known to default. And currently, the United States is standing at a debt of over about 31 trillion United States dollars, which is their threshold to go into defaulting. So the discussions that will be held to consider either raising that debt ceiling or keeping it, which will mean that the country as the United States will have defaulting on several loans that they have been able to take out in the recent past. More of that is coming up on the show. And also, the Capital Markets Authority last week released the Capital Markets Authority quarterly bulletin for the first quarter of 2023. The edition is out and is on their website at www.capitalmarketsauthority or cma.org.org. And this is where we can actually get to understand what happened in the first quarter, not just in the stock markets, not just in the treasury bond markets, but it stretches out to even the exchange-traded funds. It stretches out to the collective investment schemes, which have become very popular investment platforms for different individuals here in Uganda, with a very interesting trend. When you look at the trend of growth in the investment in the capital markets segment, that is the unit trusts or the collective investment schemes, they have become so popular, and the amount invested or the assets under management by several asset managers or fund managers has been rising since time immemorial. So we are going to also be looking at that a little later on in the show. Let's start off, of course, with a look at Africa's stock exchanges, the biggest stock exchanges in Africa, and how they performed on Friday. Markets, remember, work exactly from Monday morning to Friday evening. And on Monday, we get to look back at the past week and reflect, and of course, get to look forward with a new vision and start a new week with a fresh mindset of investing and with fresh information, only here at Smart 24 TV. But before we go ahead, the show is proudly brought to you by the Altex East Africa platform. And with Altex East Africa, we're saying you can have more money and no hassle at all. Under Zabu initiative, which is an initiative by the company to be able to access the markets using mobile money, you can now simply dial *292# and following the prompts, you can register online for those different tradings on the Altex platform. But you can also buy treasury bonds across several markets here in East Africa, in Uganda, in Kenya, and in Tanzania as well. The starting price for any treasury bond is 15,000 on OTX East Africa. This is why we are saying you can do something new, because no one has given you that on the market. OTX East Africa, it says you can do something absolutely new. Now let's get to dive right into the business here on the African stock exchanges. Across Africa, Ghana Stock Exchange list increased by 7.41 points on Friday. This is a stock exchange that has quite a number of stocks, and currently when you look at their all-share index, which is the GSCE CI index, or the consumer index, is currently at least 2,571 points. Now, the Ghana Stock Exchange has close to about 38 listings on the main board. And when you look at Friday trading, they had 18 participants rather, and with just 2 gainers and 1 loser. The Guinness Ghana breweries led the gainers at a 10%, and Unilever Ghana as well at least added 9.85% to the value of the shareholders there. And this drove the index upwards by 7.41 points, up to at least 2,571 points closing Friday markets. Moving on to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the principal stock exchange of South Africa and the biggest and main stock exchange in Africa. The index that, of course, performs as a benchmark index on the exchange added at least 507.86 to the all-share exchange. And when you look at their current stop points, they have at least 78,175.82 points. This is after the 507 increase in the points on their index. Now, when you look at Johannesburg Stock Exchange trading, currently we have close to about, about 422 listings on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. There were 308 participants on Friday, ending with 212 gainers and over about 82 losers on the market. Ellie's Holdings led the gainers with an 18.18% appreciation in price, closing at a price of 0.13 South African rand per share. And this was followed by Kore Potash, who at least added at least 12.50% on their particular pricing on Friday. Regarding the performance of the indices on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, we had at least the all-share index, the J203, at least add about 507 points, like I mentioned earlier, to close off at 78,175 points. The markets continue to be very, very volatile in South Africa, as we, of course, see a lot of changes and dynamics here and there, especially in the banking sector and in the mining sector of the South African economy. So you better keep watch of that over there in South Africa, and of course have a look at what's going down in the biggest stock exchange in Africa. Away from South Africa, in Nigeria, the Nigeria Stock Exchange at least added 78.50 points, up to at least over about 52,187 points that closed Friday tradings. Nigeria Stock Exchange currently is also one of the biggest stock exchanges in Africa. And when you look at their listings, they have quite a number of listings on the exchange, and quite interesting trading goes down in the stock exchange here in Nigeria. In 1960, that is when we saw the Nigerian Stock Exchange actually come up and commenced trading in June the following year. It is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria and licensed under the Investments and Securities Act of Nigeria. Since the deregulation of the Nigerian capital market in 1993, the subsequent institution of investor protection policies and the Nigerian Stock Exchange has seen significant growth in this period. In fact, when you look at the all-share index, which was launched in 1984 with a base value of 100 points and has reached a peak of at least 66,371 points in 2008. Nigerian Stock Exchange is a founding member of the Africa Securities Exchange Association and also a member of the World Federation of Exchanges, International Organization of Securities Commission, and the SSE initiatives. Let's get back home here in Uganda and have a look at the benchmark index for the performance here of the stocks in Uganda and see what really went down on Friday before the close of trading. Uganda Stock Exchange at least saw just 2 equities participate in trade for the Friday tradings. Fortunately or unfortunately, there were no gainers or losers on the market. Quite stable day of trading with only MTN Uganda and New Vision Printing and Publishing Company actually trading for this particular Friday. Now, New Vision Printing and Publishing Company closed the day with a price of 155 Ugandan shillings, which has been their price quite a number of months now. And currently, when you look at the stock's market capitalization, it has also been stable at 11.9 billion Ugandan shillings. This means that New Vision Printing and Publishing Company is currently at least the 16th most valuable stock on the Uganda Stock Exchange out of the 18 listings on the Uganda Securities Exchange. New Vision and Printing Publishing Company currently has a stock valued at 155 shillings per share. This is where we are having the value of the stocks. And yesterday, or rather on Friday, they had 100 shares volume traded at 155 shillings, their current pricing. That means they had about 15,500 shillings that was traded. However, the company has 76.5 million shares outstanding, and of course that brings their market capitalization. If you multiply that by the 155 Ugandan shillings per share, it brings their market capitalization to the 11.9 billion Ugandan shillings. The current share price of New Vision Printing Publishing Company, like I mentioned, has not changed. And looking at the history here, the last time this price changed was on the 1st of February. That's when we had the price at least slightly go down to 150 Ugandan shillings. But later on the 2nd of February, the price picked up once again back to 155 Ugandan shillings per share. And that's where it has been trading currently. New Vision Printing and Publishing Company is not the only media house listed. We do have the Nation Media Group company from Kenya as well listed on the exchange. However, there's been no activity on the same. MTN was the other participants. As you can see and tell, the markets were quite slow on Friday. Just 2 equities participating in the trade. However, of course, we have to get to understand even the slightest movements if we are to make very, very informed decisions in terms of our portfolio. Now, MTN currently is valued at 165 Ugandan shillings per share. Opening this day, Monday, is the price that we're talking about, the 165 Ugandan shillings. This is the price that has opened up at the market today. Well, it is the same price that closed the markets on Friday, and this was after a trading of 491 shares on the market, and these were valued at 82,520 Ugandan shillings. MTN stock currently is valued at 3.7 trillion market capitalization, and this is with a total volume of at least 22.4 billion shares that are currently floated on the exchange. The Uganda Securities Exchange has seen MTN stock begin the year with 180.0 Ugandan shillings. Now, when you look at the year-to-date performance, it's narrowing down to currently at least about 8.33% depreciation from the 180 shillings to 165 Ugandan shillings. This ranks the company the 7th in terms of year-to-date performance. The MTN Ugandan stock as well is the 3rd most traded on stock. This means that in terms of volumes, they come in the 3rd place, and they come behind Stanbic Bank Uganda and MTN, and Womeme in the 3rd, and Womeme, who are coming in the 1st and 2nd position, with MTN coming in the 3rd position. Over the past 3 months, it's now to a tune of 16.9 million shares that the company has been able to trade on the exchange, valued at least 2.86 billion Ugandan shillings at the moment. That is MTN Uganda for you. MTN, remember, is the first and only electronic initial public offer that we have seen on the Uganda Securities Exchange. The stock just listed about 1 year and a half ago in 2021 in the month of December. However, the stock was undersubscribed to, but still it had a record subscription in terms of the amount of money that was collected in the initial public offer. The price quickly went down from 200 shillings of the initial public offer after listing on the main board of the exchange down to over 160 shillings, and then later on rose steadily to 180. And on average last year, when you look at the trading of MTN, the average pricing was between 175 and the maximum of at least 190. However, this year things haven't been so good for MTN so far on the exchange, and however much the company claims to be having a very good profit for the year 2022, there hasn't been that similar response from the shareholders in terms of adding value to the stock. The stock has consequently lost quite an enormous amount of value in weekly, monthly, and quarterly performances on the exchange. That's it from the stock performances from the big boys here in the Uganda Securities Exchange. However, we do have quite a number of listings on the exchange. We have over 18 companies that are listed from which you can choose and be able to invest in. Trading on the exchange is quite easy. All you need is an SCD account or a Securities Central Depository. This Securities Central Depository will give you access to the market, because without it, it's like a bank account. You cannot claim to be having maybe any transactions with a bank without you having an account with them. So this is the first thing you need to do as a shareholder, and it's free of charge. So you can even open it without a single coin. All you need to do is, of course, to go online and register using the USE Easy portal, and then choose from the 5 stockbrokers that are licensed by the Capital Markets Authority who you're going to be working with. You want to be working with a stockbroker who is very prominent. You want to be working with someone who has been in the game for quite some time, so you can be able to reap from your investment and get the correct advice. But all the 5, I can say, since they're licensed, they're eligible, they're eligible stockbrokers, and so you can be able to deal with them and start your journey of investment. Let's move across to Nairobi and have a look at Nairobi Securities Exchange trading on Friday. Now, Nairobi Securities Exchange maintains over the 65, now 66 listings actually on the exchange. 46 participated in Friday tradings, and the day ended with at least 20 gainers and 22 losers. When you look at the data analyzed from Thursday and Friday, the data on Friday showed a 20% decline in the volume and about over 12% improvement, however, was registered in the turnover. Let's see why. Well, Everready East Africa was the top gainer at least 8.6% on the exchange that was gained on their price, closing off at a 1.08 Kenyan shillings per share. We had BK Group at least 7.81% appreciation, whereas the Longhorn Publishers added 4.84% on their total value at least, closing off with a gain of that particular amount. And Kabaseed Investments at least also realized a gain of 4% on the market. On the losing side, however, Flame Tree Group Holdings came out at the bottom with a total loss of at least about 9.56% and closing off with a price of 1.23 Kenyan shillings per share. BOC Kenya at least lost 8.5% as well, and the Scan Group lost 7.55%, and Home Africa, a property developer there on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, lost 6.67%. In terms of the volumes, Equity Group Holdings recorded the highest volume of trade at 3.47 million shares, whereas Safaricom had about 2.1 million shares that closed the market. And Kenya Power and Lighting Company at least had about 1.26 million shares, and Cooperative Bank of Kenya at least had about 1.16 million shares. Pretty good volumes there for the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Regarding the performance of the NSE All Share Index, which is kind of a benchmark of the performance of the stocks on Nairobi Securities Exchange, at least the index inched up 0.18 points up to at least a closure of 98.52 points on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. That's it from Nairobi. And if you want to trade on Nairobi, you can still reach out to the stockbrokers in Nairobi. We are vying for the integration of the Capital Markets Authority, in East Africa, to have a common market that will ease accessibility and, of course, mobility in terms of trading, and, of course, get to cut off some barriers, tariff and non-tariff barriers that are involved in trading across borders. We should be really one as a region in terms of trade, no matter which kind of trade, even besides this, online or securities trading, but also in commodity trading. We do need a free market so that people can be able to access the markets and grow our regional economies as well. So definitely we are looking up to that, and the African Development Bank is spearheading that drive to integrate the capital markets here in East Africa. Let's get to have a look at the United States and what's coming up now this week. The debt ceiling deliberations, more retail earnings, and the minutes of the Federal Reserve's latest meeting await investors as highlights ahead of this week. The House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, said that the Saturday discussions over the debt ceiling wouldn't resume until President Joe Biden returned from his trip to Japan for the G7 meeting. On Sunday, before departing the G7, Biden called the GOP's debt ceiling stance unacceptable, and adding to it that it was time for the other side to move from their extreme positions. This is a Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's June 1st date, X dates looms. Now, on Friday, the two parties put talks on pause, raising doubts on whether in the near term potential for a deal and sending markets lower. So markets generally closed lower because there were no conclusions on the debt ceiling. To this point, to this date, we haven't seen any conclusions there. All the three major indexes still finished the week with gains, however, notably the Nasdaq, which rose at least more than 3%. The Nasdaq and the S&P 500 had their best week since March this year, and their highest weekly close since August 2022. The year-to-date performance, the Nasdaq at least has been more than about 20% up, and the S&P 500 rose more than 9% in the year-to-date, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average just barely clinging to gains for the year. And that's it from the United States and the Wall Street. We shall keep you updated on what the discussions are going to be like between President Joe Biden and the House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, and what will be coming out of these discussions and the impact they'll have on the stocks. But something to note is that the stocks were encouraged last week by the earnings from the retail sector struck a very cautious tone on the consumer spending for the year. But it didn't sound alarms on a full recession. When you look at the recession quite yet, it's not yet something we are really looking into. The recession, is hitting backwards, and people are getting to get more excited and encouraged by the market. But all that could be turned down if at all these discussions on the debt ceiling are not dealt with properly. That's it, my friend. Our time is fast spent. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are not going to be able to go through the Capital Markets Authority quarterly bulletin, but definitely catch the show tomorrow. We shall be breaking for you down what happened under the unit trusts. Very interesting investments there that many Ugandans are becoming quite, encouraged to be able to trade in. And we shall be seeing how they performed in the first quarter of 2023. And moving on in the second quarter, what we should be expecting. My name is Anthony. Remember to trade with Altex East Africa, your number one platform for trading on treasury bonds using your mobile money. Simply dial *292# to experience this kind of trade on your phone. You don't need stockbrokers, no intermediates. All you need is your phone and your mobile money, as little as 15,000 and above, to start your journey of investment. Altex East Africa is saying you can do something new with Zabo. And that's it, my friend. Thank you so much once again for tuning in. More business coming ahead. Remember, Smart24 TV, we are located at Plot 42 Nile Avenue, Kampala, and we give you business 24 hours, 7 days a week. So stay tuned for more of that, and see you tomorrow. Bye for now.